now, and you can take it away.
All right, thank you so much. And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Balancing Income and Expenses webinar. I'm really happy you're all here. And my name is Alessandra, and I am a housing counselor at Habitat for Humanity East Bay, Silicon Valley. So I just wanted to let you know that in case you don't know, you can on the Santa Clara Library website download, access the zip file to several handouts that are topic related and have a lot of helpful information and resources about today's topics. I'm going to later share a link to our anonymous evaluation form. This is your opportunity to let us know what you thought of this webinar. So I'll share that later. And I'll also share a link to our online financial education center, which I'll talk more about at the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are, who Habitat is. We are a nonprofit and we serve people in Alameda, Contra Costa, and Santa Clara counties. And we are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, and we offer a variety of services that help people learn how to manage their personal finances. We offer one-on-one counseling. That's for people who want to work one-on-one with a HUD-certified housing counselor to learn how to manage personal finances, which can include learning how to budget or create a savings plan, or maybe manage their debt. Even repair their credit history, or maybe improve their credit score. And as well as people who would like to at some point purchase a home and they want to know what they can do to financially prepare to purchase that home. What does the home buying process looks like? What are some things they can do to prepare? So we help with all that. And we also offer group education on financial education, like the webinar we're offering today. We offer them through our own website monthly. We offer 3 different topics, and we also partner with community organizations and libraries like the Santa Clara Library to offer them to the clients they serve. And we have an online financial education center, which is free and available 24/7. And I'll talk more about that later. And we also teach the HUD-approved first-time homebuyer class. And if you'd like to know about all the programs that we offer, there's our website, www.habitatebsv.org. And you can go check it out and look at all the services that we offer. But today we're going to be covering the following. We'll talk about how to analyze your financial situation. We'll talk about how to manage your income and expenses cash flow, how to prioritize bills and expenses, and then we'll touch a little bit on the cost of easy credit. So balancing income and expenses can often feel like a struggle, especially here in the Bay Area, where the cost of living is sky high. The 50-30-20 budget gives you a guideline of how to allocate your take-home income towards savings, debt payments, and expenses. So based on this guideline, you should limit your need expenses to 50% and your wants to 30% of your take-home income. You should also add at least 10% to savings and spend no more than 10% on paying monthly debts like credit cards and loans. And of course, this is just a guideline, and you'll likely have to adjust it to your situation. Maybe just your housing payment is almost 50% of your net income. So if you need to adjust your spending percentages, the wants portion of the 50-30-20 budget is the one that should be reduced first, as much as needed to make sure you can cover your needs, that you can add to savings, and be able to keep up with your debt payments. Now, need expenses are those that are basic for basic survival. They protect your housing, they help you live, like utilities and food. They protect your income, like transportation costs to work. That's because if you can't get to work, you can't earn, which puts your ability to cover costs for shelter and basic living expenses at risk. Wants add quality to your life. You can survive without them. Some are obvious, like going out to eat, but some are less obvious. For example, a need expense can become a want expense. You need clothes, but other than making sure you have the basics, any extra piece of clothing you purchase becomes a want. And of course, everyone's financial situation is different, and your percentages will likely not match. But the 50-30-20 budget kind of gives you a baseline to work from, a guideline, so that you can identify areas where you might need to make adjustments. But knowing what your spending percentages are is not enough. You also must make sure that you always have enough available to cover your bills, your expenses, and all your debt payments when they're due. And then at the end of the month, you have a surplus amount available that provides you with a cushion to cover any extra costs that you may have that month, maybe a higher than usual utility bill, or maybe a possible increase in cost like rent. And this is called personal cash flow management. Personal cash flow refers to your income minus your expenses over a certain period of time, typically a month. And when you have a positive cash flow, more is coming in than going out, you're living within your means. And if you have a negative cash flow, you're spending more than you earn and living beyond your means. And as a result, you risk not having enough to cover critical living expenses, falling behind on debt payments and paying bills, and it also impacts your ability to save. So here's an example of a positive cash flow chart. The blue bar refers to income coming in, the red bar to expenses, and the green bar to available cash surplus at the end of that period. In this example, each week more money is coming in than going out, and at the end of each week, there's a bit of money left that gets carried over to help cover the following week's expenses. And at the end of the month, there is a surplus. This is money that can also be used to reach financial goals that go beyond adding maybe to an emergency savings, things like help pay off a debt, like a credit card balance, or maybe student loans, or saving for a down payment to buy a car. How closely and how often you need to monitor your weekly cash flow really depends on your situation. If your income varies, perhaps you don't work the same hours every week, or you work as a freelancer, or maybe you're a contractor, you may need to watch it more closely and regularly so that you can make any needed adjustments to ensure your income and expenses stay cash flow positive week to week. If you have predictable income, for example, you're salaried, then you may need to review it when there are important changes, for example, an increase in your rent or maybe a higher car payment. So the first step in cash flow management is to have a clear picture of your current financial situation. So first, get organized. Gather all your income documentation like pay stubs, benefit payments, tax returns, and profit and loss statements if you're self-employed. And then list expenses and monthly debts you are paying off, like credit cards and loans. Think also of those expenses that come a few times a year, like your car registration. And then using the income documentation that you gathered, calculate your monthly take-home income. That's the amount you earn or receive after all deductions are taken out, like tax payments, health plan, and retirement contributions. And this is the amount you want to use because it is how much you can count on to cover your expenses. So if you are employed, it's the amount your employer deposits in your bank account. And if you're self-employed, it's what you earn that month minus all business-related expenses and the income taxes that you will have to pay. And then based on the list of expenses you created, calculate how much you're spending monthly on each, and then the monthly cost of all expenses combined. Once you've calculated how much is coming in and how much is going out every month, then you can calculate your cash flow. Do you have enough available throughout the month to cover bills, expenses, and debt payments when they're due? Do you have a surplus available at the end of the month that provides you with the financial cushion? Now, it's also important to analyze how you are spending your income. Using the 50-30-20 budget as a guide, ask yourself, is too much going towards want expenses? Is your monthly debt payment obligation too high? Are you adding enough to savings? And this will help you see where you should make changes as well as areas for improvement. Let's say that you find that you are spending 30% of your take-home income on wants, but you're adding only 5% to savings. You can then review your want expenses to find which you can reduce to help free up money so that you can start saving 10%. Now, as you go through this process, keep in mind your financial goals and why they're important to you. That's because connecting your inner motivations will help you stay focused and on track as you work on balancing income and expenses. So, for example, reminding yourself of a goal to save will help you stay focused and committed as you look for ways to reduce costs so you can free up money that can go towards savings instead. So here's how to kind of track your income. To calculate the total monthly income you earn, you can use an income tracker like this example. So first list all your income sources. And as you do this, note what type of income it is, because that will help you see what you can count on each week and each month, as well as prepare for when you have less coming in. For example, if you have income that comes at predictable times and the same amount, for example, maybe you're salaried or maybe you receive the same benefit amount each month, then it will help show you how much you can count on to cover expenses. If it's irregular, maybe you're self-employed and the amount you earn varies, then you know you need to track it more carefully and more often. And if you get benefits, keep in mind that some can only be used for a particular purpose, like food or medical costs. And then for each income source, enter the amount you expect to receive in the week you receive it, and then add up the total income for each week and write it in the weekly total. And then add the weekly totals to calculate your net income for the month. Now, if your income varies, as a starting base amount, calculate what you earned on average per month in the last 3 to 4 months. So for example, if on month 1 you earn $3,000, on month 2 you earn $2,800, and on month 3 you earn $3,100, add up the 3 amounts, which equal 8,900, and then divide 8,900 by 3, which gives you 2,967. So 2,967 is the average monthly net income you earned or received in the last 3 months. And then you can use this average amount and distribute it according to your payment schedule. For example, if you're paid on the 1st and the 15th of the month, divide that monthly amount by 2 and enter it on the week you get paid. But continue monitoring what's coming in until you're confident that you're using amounts that you can reliably count on. Expenses fall under different categories. Fixed expenses are the same amount each month, so they're easier to plan for and calculate. And they include things like your rent, your car insurance if you pay monthly, your loan payments. Because they're fixed, you don't have control over their costs, so you must make sure that you can cover them. Now, treat savings as a fixed expense. They fall into that category. You should commit to adding a percentage of your net income to savings every month. Variable expenses change every month depending on how you use them. For example, utilities, groceries, gas, even credit card payments, which are based on the balance that you carry. Now, these are harder to track, but you also have more control over them if you need to adjust your cash flow. Discretionary expenses are your wants. You have full control over these costs. They include obvious things like eating out, going to the movies, but also things you may not necessarily think about, like subscriptions to streaming channels, music apps, fast food. Periodic expenses come a few times a year or once a year. You don't have to pay the bill to cover the cost every month, but you need to make sure you have enough money available when needed. If you're self-employed, they also include money that you need to set aside to pay income taxes. If you don't plan for these, you risk not having enough money when needed and then resorting to using credit cards to cover the costs, which can lead to getting into debt. Your cash expenses tend to be those small regular purchases like coffee, bottled water, snacks, fast food. Because they're small, we think they don't add up to much, but they do. And if you don't track those costs, you won't have a realistic picture where your money's going. Now, these expenses typically fall under wants, and you'll have full control over them. The best way to prepare for periodic expenses is to save a little every month. So start by listing all the expenses that come a few times a year and then calculate their periodic costs. Some may be fixed, like car insurance. Some may be variable, like clothes and shoes, holiday spending. Their costs vary from year to year, depending on your spending patterns. To calculate how much you spend, look back at the last couple of years. Then carefully weigh their costs against your financial priorities before deciding on how much you should budget for. Now, if the expense comes every other month, divide the amount by 2. If it comes every 3 months, then divide it by 3. And if it comes every 6 months, divide it by 6. If it comes once a year, divide it by 12. So let's look at an example of a periodic expenses budget. Let's say that your car registration is $180 and it's due once a year. So you divide this amount by 12 and you get 15. This means that you add $15 to savings every month. So you have the $180 you need to be able to pay the bill when it becomes due. You also pay $600 for car insurance every 6 months. So you divide that amount by 6 and find that you need to save $100 a month to cover this cost. Every 3 months, you pay $900 in self-employment taxes, which means that you need to save $300 a month to cover the $900 payment when it's due. And in total, you need to save $415 every month to make sure you can cover all these periodic costs. This amount becomes part of your monthly budget. You include it as a periodic cost expense that gets factored into your monthly cash flow. When tracking expenses, the more in detail you go, the more in control you will be. For example, the food category separated into groceries, eating out, snacks, drinks at the coffee shop, etc. Don't forget to include an amount that goes towards saving for emergencies and periodic costs. And as you track, pay close attention to those spending leaks, where you're spending more than you thought you were or think you should. And this will help you identify those costs that you can reduce or should reduce. So on a spending tracker like this, list all your expenses and enter the total you spent in each category for that week. And then add all the weekly amounts for each category and enter the weekly totals, and then add these totals together to get your total spending for the month. And then deduct your month spending total from your monthly take-home income. Now, your goal is to, of course, see a positive amount. That means you have surplus income available. And now, if you do see a negative amount, then it means you are living beyond your means. And you'll need to review your expenses carefully to see where you can make adjustments to reduce your costs as much as needed to end the month budget positive. Now, do this for a month as a starting point, but because many expenses vary from month to month and some are periodic, to really get a clear picture, you should continue monitoring them for at least 3 to 4 months, or until you feel confident that you have a good sense of what all your costs are. To help you track expenses, use receipts. Because they itemize what you buy, they show you where you're spending your money in detail and help you identify all your spending patterns. So for example, if you go to the grocery store and you buy toiletries in addition to food, by looking at your receipt, you can track these 2 categories separately. Keep those receipts organized in an envelope, so when you sit down to calculate your week's expenses, you have all the information readily available. You can also use expenses tracking apps that help you track spending habits. A lot of banks offer these budgeting tools. Just be really careful with whom and how you share your personal information. And if you're using these apps, make sure that you're not using them while on public Wi-Fi. Once you have a clear picture of how much comes in, how much is going out, you can create a cash flow budget to help you make sure you have enough from week to week to cover your expenses. So on a spreadsheet like this one, divided into 5 weeks columns to account for months that have that extra week. And then divide it into two sections, one for income and one for expenses, and then list the categories in each section. For income, all your income sources, and for expenses, all your spending categories. And as you do this, refer to your net income and spending trackers. And as you enter your various costs, make sure to include an amount that goes towards savings for emergencies. So here is an example. In the week one column, enter your starting balance, which is the total money you have available left from the previous month, including what is in your checking account, cash, and benefit cards. Now, don't count money that's in your savings account because it is there as a cushion for emergencies, periodic expenses, and for other financial goals that you may be working to achieve. So in this example, the starting balance is $800. Now enter the amounts you will earn or receive on week one based on the information you entered in your spending in your income tracker, and add those amounts to your starting balance. In this example, their earnings for the week is $900, which added to the starting balance totals $1,700. So this is the amount they have available to cover expenses for that week. And in the weekly expenses section, enter all the expenses you will have in week one, and then calculate the week's total, which in this example is $350. And then subtract the week's expenses total from 1,700, and this will give you the ending weekly balance, which in this case is 1,350. And this is the amount you enter in week two, beginning weekly balance. And then you repeat the same steps for each week. And at the end of the month, you have 1,000, in this example, they have $1,410 left in surplus income, which gets carried over to the following month. Now, depending on your situation, you may need to create a cash flow budget monthly or only when there are changes, for example, if income and or expenses increase or decrease. We have a quick knowledge check, and Jenny, I don't know if it's the best place for them to write it is if it's in the Q&A box or the chat box, but I was going to.
Yeah, I've made it available so people can chime in when you if you ask a question. So
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so question number one. So we reviewed at the very beginning of the presentation the 50-30-20 budget. So based on that budget, how much should you spend per month on need expenses? What do you remember? Remember that pie chart that we talked about? Anybody remember? Or
you're able to type it in the chat if you haven't tried out the chat yet. So probably open up the chat function and go ahead and type it in. But if you're stumped, then it's okay as well.
It's okay as well. And don't worry about, even if you're not sure. I mean, write what you think. It's not the point of this is not to make sure you give me the right answer. It's to kind of just review a few of the key points. Yes, I can repeat the question. Based on the 50-30-20 budget, that pie chart that we reviewed at the very beginning of the presentation, what percentage of your take-home income, what's the maximum percentage of your take-home income that you should spend per month on need expenses? 50%. I see somebody said 50. Yes. Very good. Okay, what about want expenses? 30%. Yes. And all right, and of that 20, the last 20, how do you divide it? Do you remember how you divide that? What that 20% means? So there's 10%. It gets divided into two different categories. 10% should go to savings, yes. And what's the other 10%? So at least 10% should go to savings. So aim to Debts, yes. So the remaining 10%, so we're 10%, at least 10% should go towards savings. No more than 10% should go towards paying off debts, like credit. And when we're talking about debts, we're talking about credit card payments, those minimum payments that you have to make, and the and loans, any loans that you may have. Great, thank you so much for participating. All right, let's kind of move on. All right, the bill payment calendar. Now, the bill payment calendar can help you track payment dates for recurring bills, like rent, utilities, all those bills, so that you can plan and make sure that the payment is received on time to avoid being charged costly late payment fees. So on a calendar like this, look at each bill's payment due date and then schedule the bill on the date when you must send the payment or when the money must be taken out of your account to make sure it's received on time. Now, if you're paying by mail, mark the payment date at least 7 days before it's due. For in-person or online bill payment, mark it 2 or 3 days before the due date. And then to make sure that you don't forget to make a payment when you pay a bill, cross it out on the payment calendar. A cash flow calendar can help you see in more detail where you're coming up short week to week and how you can move expenses around to better align with when you get paid. So on a calendar like this, enter your income sources and their amounts on the day you receive them with a plus sign, and your expenses and amounts on the day you pay them with a minus sign. Now, if you see that you will not have enough available to cover all the week's expenses, look if there are some that you could move till after more income comes in, or maybe that have more flexible due dates before the payment's considered late. And you can also try contacting the financial institution, landlord, or service provider to see if they would be willing to maybe change the payment due date so it coincides with when you get paid or when your week's cash flow is higher. So let's look at an example. Let's say this person's week starting account balance is $500. The next income payment is on Friday when they get $500 paycheck for a part-time job, and they also get paid $100 on Saturday for tutoring. Now the week's bills and expenses total $520, which is more than what is currently available. So or before money starts coming in again. So in this situation, the PG&E and cell phone bills have set payment amounts and dates. So really they can't make any changes there. However, they could wait till Saturday to buy groceries and get gas after they get paid. And of course, it'll take some planning. They'll need to make sure they have enough food and gas to last them a few extra days. So maybe they can cut car trips by carpooling, or whenever possible, walk instead of drive. They can also get creative with meals and use what's in the refrigerator and cupboards. Chances are the fridge and the freezers are not empty. They also likely have canned or dry beans, pasta, rice, flour, food staples that they can use to make meals. They can also use saving strategies to free up money that can help them cover food and gas for a few days. So for example, if they have a habit of eating fast food 2 times a week at $10 a meal, that's $20 they could instead use to add a few gallons of gas in their car to get them to the end of the week. And then at the end of the week, their starting balance will be $580, and they can then plan the following week's expenses accordingly. And here's some strategies that you can adopt to help you improve your cash flow. Refer to your list of expenses and identify all those that you can reduce or eliminate. Small changes matter. Spending $4 less per day adds up to $121 per month, or almost $1,500 per year. Cut non-essential expenses first. Are there memberships you don't need or use? For example, those subscriptions to maybe channels, gym memberships. Can you reduce your going out to eat cost, or drinks from the coffee shop, or eliminate a home phone, or get rid of cable? And then look at your essential expenses. Are there any you can reduce? For example, look at your costs for groceries. Are there strategies you can adopt to help you reduce it? Maybe You can make a weekly meal plan that's based on coupons and grocery deals you find. Are there bills you can lower? For example, can you renegotiate your cell phone contract and maybe change to a lower cost data plan? Price shop for services you receive. For example, review your car insurance. Can you shop around and get a better rate? If you have a good driving record, for example, you may be able to lower your current rate or get a discount. You could also look into increasing your deductible to lower your monthly payment. Of course, if you're considering that, make sure that you can afford that deductible amount should you need to cover it. You can try to negotiate a new bill payment due date to better coincide with when you receive income. So you could start with companies where you have a good payment history and long-standing relationship, because they may be more likely to and open to adjustments. Negotiate splitting a large monthly payment into two smaller ones, do it different times. For example, let's say your rent payment is $1,400. You could ask if you could cover the full amount with a $700 payment on the 1st and 15th of the month, so you can free up more money at the beginning of the month to cover other bills. You could change a large lump sum payment into smaller monthly payments. For example, if you pay car insurance yearly or twice a year, you could change it to monthly payments. There may be a small fee to pay, but it can make handling a larger payment more manageable by breaking it down into smaller amounts. Check to see if you qualify for assistance programs in your area. For example, there are local and national programs that can help low-income households pay for part of their energy costs. Explore utility bills payment plans. For example, you may be able to take advantage of a plan that averages your annual use over a 12-month period so that you pay the same amount and avoid having to budget for seasonal increases in costs. Check student loan repayment options. If you're paying back student loans, you may qualify for an income-based repayment plan, which will lower your student loan payment based on your income and family size. But cutting expenses may not be enough. You may also need to bring in some extra income to make your cash flow work. So tap into all available sources. Can you work some overtime? Can you take a side job, maybe offer services like yard work, or maybe teach a second language or tutor? A few hours a week can help cover an essential expense like utilities. Could someone in your household who is not currently working take a part-time job? Look into benefits and financial assistance programs that you may qualify for. Can you sell items you don't need? The proceeds can help you pay off debt, so you can free up that monthly payment that you can use to pay another expense. And if you usually receive a large tax refund, review your tax withholding status with your employer to ensure the correct amount is being withheld. Look to see if there are tax credits that you may qualify for that would help you pay less in income tax. And for more information on tax credits, you can visit the IRS website. Now, there may be months when the cash flow is tighter. Maybe you work fewer hours, so your paycheck's smaller, or you have an emergency expense like a medical bill, a job loss, or a reduction in income, but you still need to keep up with your regular bills and living costs. So ideally, you have an emergency savings that you can tap into to cover the shortfall, and that's why it's so important to add to savings every month. But if you don't have one and you've reduced all possible expenses and you've looked into all possible ways to bring in additional income and still you don't have enough to pay all your bills, the order you pay them can sometimes help you in the short term to make it through the month until you find the long-term solution. Now, individual circumstances are unique, but if you find yourself in this situation, give higher priority to expenses and bills that cover your essential living costs, that help you stay housed, keep your utilities connected, they keep you fed and clothed, they ensure your income's protected, like transportation costs to work. And if you go to work, by car, that includes not just the car payment, but gas, insurance, maintenance and repairs, registration costs, childcare and legal obligations like child support, alimony, and student loans also fall into this category. That's because if you don't have someone watching your children, you can't get to work and earn. And if you do not make your child support, alimony, and student loan payments, then your wages and benefits could be garnished, which means your income will be reduced. You also want to make sure that you can keep up with your legal obligations and payments for secured debts that are backed by an asset, like your car loan. Because if you don't, not only do you risk credit and legal consequences, you also risk losing that asset. It's also important to keep up with your medical and car insurance coverages. If you have a medical emergency, you want to make sure your costs are covered. And you can't drive in California without insurance. And also, if one of your sources of income is driving for a delivery service, they will require it. And if you let it lapse, then you risk losing that source of income. And of course, you also must prioritize savings to ensure financial security. Now, your lower priority expenses include unsecured debts like credit cards and medical bills. Now, these are not secured by an asset, and although they are important. So if you're forced to choose between paying rent or making a credit card payment, you'll need to prioritize your need for housing. However, don't ignore the bills you can't pay for too long, because it can have credit, financial, and legal consequences. And do your best to at least keep up with the credit card's minimum payments. If you have debts that have gone into collection, unless you're being sued, don't forego paying higher priority bills to pay a debt collector. And of course, non-essential services like cable, Netflix, Hulu, and expenses that are not necessary for your survival, like entertainment, eating out, fast food, coffee, drinks, those are all lowest on the list. Avoid using credit cards to help you cover expenses you couldn't otherwise afford. They are a form of borrowing at high interest rates. And if you're not mindful about how you use them, it's easy to get into credit card debt. Now, credit card companies require us to make a low minimum monthly payment that's based on the balance that we carry. And that payment is low, and it tricks us into thinking it's an affordable way to pay for things. But very little of that amount goes towards paying down your balance, and most of it goes to pay interest. That's how credit card companies make money. When all we do is pay the minimum, then we end up paying them a lot in interest. So here's an example that shows you how much carrying credit card balances will cost you. Let's say this person has a balance of $1,000 and the card's interest rate is 18%. So they can't pay the full balance, but they can afford the minimum $25 monthly payment. So they don't worry. They'll just pay the $25. I'm sure it'll take longer to pay off, but that's okay. It'll get paid off eventually. However, if they were to do a calculation of how much it will cost them in interest and how long it will take them to pay off that balance, they would be shocked. So assuming they stop charging on the account, it will take them more than 9 years to pay the balance in full. Because they're paying 18% interest on any remaining owed balance, they'll end up paying $923 just in interest, almost double what their original balance was. When they make that last payment 9 years later, do they even remember what they bought, and are they still using it? So if you tend to resort to using credit cards to pay for expenses, carefully look at how you're spending your money and where you should make changes. Are you trying to keep up with the lifestyle that's beyond your means? Maybe you're spending too much on wants. Do you have any spending leaks you should plug, expenses you should reduce? If you find yourself in a financial bind, you may think getting a short-term loan can be a solution to your problem. They are easy to get because they don't require a credit check, so that makes them more accessible than a personal loan. Payday, title, tax refund, and cash loans are all types of short-term financing that charge very high interest rates and excessive fees. They also have a short window till you must pay the loan back. And if you can repay it when it's due, then you may be able to extend it, but you must pay another fee, and then the cost of the loan grows. And you risk getting stuck in a borrowing loop and then end up owning a lot more than the original amount you borrowed. With payday loans, you give the lender a check for the amount you borrow plus fees, or you authorize them to take the amount from your bank account electronically. And the specific due date is typically 2 to 4 weeks from the date the loan was made. Title loans typically last 15 or 30 days. They use your car, your truck, your motorcycle, or other vehicle as collateral. The lender holds on to the title until the loan is repaid and may also want a duplicate set of your keys for the vehicle. You won't get your title back until you repay the amount you borrowed plus the lender's fees. And these types of loans have the added risk of losing your vehicle if you can't pay it back. Tax refund loans are based on tax refund amount you expect to receive. You must pay back the amount you borrowed plus fees and interest within a few weeks. And if anything goes wrong with your refund, they can become very expensive. For example, the refund could take longer to arrive past the due date on the loan, which means you would need to extend the loan and pay additional fees. Or the tax refund could be denied or be lower than expected. Also, avoid using credit cards to get cash advances. They carry fees and high interest rates, higher than the credit card company charges you for purchases, and can quickly add up. And here's a video from the Federal Trade Commission that explains how payday lending works.
John's truck broke down, and he needed money quickly to get it fixed. He couldn't get a loan, and his credit card was maxed out. So, John went to a payday lender. To get his $500 in cash, he had to give the lender a check for $575. $500 to repay the loan, and $75 for a fee. John didn't have the money in his account right then, but it didn't matter. The lender would hold the check for 2 weeks until the loan was due. But after 2 weeks, John didn't have enough money to pay back the loan. So he paid the lender $75 more to roll over his loan. That means he got 2 more weeks to repay the loan. And 2 weeks later, the same thing happened. John paid another $75. That bought another 2 weeks to pay back the loan. It took John 12 weeks, that's 3 months, to save enough money to repay the original $500 loan. In the end, John paid $1,025 when he only needed $500. That was a really expensive loan.
All right, so let's review some money management tips. Create a plan for how you want to spend your income and review it as often as needed to make sure it reflects your current situation and financial priorities. This is one of the most important actions you can take to have control over your finances because it allows you to know what you can afford, save, plan for and reach financial goals, make smart spending decisions, avoid wasteful spending, and avoid getting into debt. Adding to savings must be a top priority in any spending plan. So make sure your budget includes an amount that goes to savings every month. If you make saving a priority, you will also be more motivated to reduce wasteful spending and free up additional money that can help you plan for and reach financial goals. Clearly distinguish what your needs and wants are and their level of importance. This will help you allocate your income in a way that's in line with your financial priorities so that you spend money in a way that allows you to stay in control of your finances and reach financial goals. Track your expenses, know where all your money is going so you can detect any red flags like spending leaks or places where you're spending more than you planned or want to. Spend within your needs but below your means. That means you can cover your critical and living expenses, but you don't spend more than you earn and you don't resort to borrowing. You make financial decisions that allow you to stay in control of personal finances, save, and still enjoy the occasional dinner out. And use credit cards wisely. They should only be used for emergencies or to build a credit history, using them from time to time, charging small amounts that you can pay in full when the bill becomes due. And they should not be used to live beyond your means. Now, if you would like to help with learning how to manage your income and expenses, consider reaching out to a HUD certified housing counselor. They'll provide step-by-step guidance and can help you create a sustainable and balanced household budget, learn money saving strategies, and create a plan that's based on your personal financial situation and that will help you reach your financial goals. All right, so we have one last knowledge poll, and again, you can use the chat box. I'll go ahead and open that. Okay, what are some examples of need expenses? So remember, need expenses are those expenses that are necessary for your survival. You can't live without them. So what are some examples? Yes, food, rent. Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure, food. Now remember, some of the needs, so like food, utilities, yes. Food is definitely a need to live expense. Medical insurance, yes. It's definitely it's important to make sure that you're keeping that current. There are some critical expenses or need expenses that could become kind of a want. For example, food, of course, let's use the food example. Food is definitely a need. However, that includes the basics that you need for groceries, right? To feed yourself and your family. If you're buying food that you're throwing away, or if you're spending money eating out, then that's considered a want. So it's food that keeps you fed, basically. Yes. Very good. Okay. What are some strategies that can help you improve your personal cash flow? We talked about some things you can do along the way. Can you recall some of them? Again, what are some strategies that can help improve your personal cash flow? Getting a side job, yes, bringing in some extra income. Now, extra income is not any extra income is any money that comes in, right? So it's not just a job. Of course, that definitely helps. But what's an example of money coming in that's not a job but can still be useful to maybe pay off a debt and free up that monthly payment, so that monthly payment can help improve your cash flow? Investments, those you can't, yeah, those are not reliable. I mean, if they're doing well, you could reap the rewards, but yes, avoid interest rates for sure. So we mentioned this briefly, but I would like to highlight it because it's selling items you don't need. Now, we all have stuff in our house that we don't use or need anymore that somebody else would love to have. So selling items you don't need, especially if you have like a storage where you're keeping a lot of stuff and you really don't really use that stuff, sell everything you can, so that you're left only with what you can keep at home. You close the storage. You now are saving money on that monthly payment that you were paying that can instead go towards something more important or maybe a financial goal. And the proceeds from anything you sell can really, you can either pour it into savings. You could pay off a debt that's can free up that monthly payment. So selling stuff in Facebook Marketplace, a great way to make some money back instead of throwing it away. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and by the way, income is also receiving help and assistance from programs. That's also considered. So anything that helps you kind of cover expenses or improve your cash flow. Okay, thank you so much. This was great. So I wanted to, and I'm going to share it in a second, but I wanted to talk to you about our evaluation form. So this is online, it's anonymous. It's your opportunity to let us know what you thought of the webinar. We really greatly appreciate the feedback. We read them carefully, and they really help us improve our presentations. You can let us know what you enjoyed, what you learned, what you might be doing different from after attending the webinar, and also things, if you have any suggestions for improvements, we'd love those as well. The first couple of questions ask you what your level of knowledge was before the webinar and what your level of knowledge is after attending the webinar. And then it gives you an opportunity to also write in some comments. And it's really easy. You just follow the link, you fill it out, you submit, and it's really not a lot of questions. It's pretty quick. I do also want to let you know, and I'll share the link in a second as well, about our online financial education center. This is completely free. And it's really a wealth of information on managing personal finances, including not just budgeting and all of the obvious things, but also retirement planning, home ownership, banking basics. It talks about, credit reports, credit scores, and a lot more. You can also create a personalized playlist that's tailored to your goals and priorities. You don't have to create an account. If you would like the system to remember your progress, then you need to create an account, which is a really quick setup, just really quick. But you don't have to. You can use it as a guest user. And the lessons, there's many lessons, and they're all short. You can complete them in 3 to 10 minutes. They're interactive. They've got calculators and live case and real case scenarios. And you can use it on your laptop, mobile, tablet. So really take advantage of this resource. And as I promised, here are the links to the online evaluation form and the financial education center. And then if you're interested in meeting with a HUD certified housing counselor, here is our contact information. I'm Alessandra, that's my email and phone number. I'm one of the HUD certified counselors, and if you're interested in one-on-one counseling, feel free to reach out to me. We will do a quick intake call just to kind of understand what goals you would like to reach and how we can help, and then we take it from there. And now I can take questions or comments, even, I would say questions, but a lot of times the audience has things they want to share, tips for other people. So it doesn't have to be a question. It can also be maybe a tip or something you've done that you've learned that really helps you manage your personal cash flow. And I think I'll stop sharing. And yeah, so I'm happy to take questions. And I'm looking at the Q&A. I don't see any there. No questions or comments? Okay. Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I'm so happy that you were able to participate. I hope you learned something useful.
I think they did. And I know everybody else has been chiming in throughout the presentation, but once again, I did place my email, and if you wish to watch this recording again, do contact me in my email. And I'm sure we can share the slides too, right, Alessandra? We can.
Yeah, yes, I can send you the slides.
So I'm gonna type my email one last time if you didn't get it, and please contact me. I'm sure all this information has been very beneficial to you, and I know reviewing it will be also beneficial because we can't retain everything in one go. So
yeah. Okay. So I'll send you a copy of the slides. I'll email them to you.
Well, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions.
No. All right.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much, Alessandra, and Habitat
Thank
for
you.
Humanity for just always schooling us, which I like to say, on things that we should think about in terms of our financial future. catch you in the next one, which will probably be in 2 months or so.
Mhm.
Lots of great opportunities to learn more. And please check out our library calendar for future events. And we're always welcome to your questions or concerns or offers. So yes, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we'll catch you at the next one. Thank you,
All
Alessandra.
right. Thank you, Danny, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. You too. Bye.